Welcome to Mission Stories for Kids with Uncle Gordon, where you will hear first-hand accounts of answers to prayer and miracles from God. Oh, by the way, I think adults will like this too.
Hi boys and girls, Uncle Gordon here. Nice to be able to talk with you and share another little story. One time I was visiting the island of Isabel. Its original word was Santa Isabella, but we just called it often Isabel when we'd go and visit there. And I'd had the joy of being able to get permission to start another clinic on that island, and had looked through plans and helped to give permission for a particular set of plans for a clinic to be built there. And then we'd allocated a nurse to go over there to help to establish the clinic, and while the new clinic was being built, he used a little bush shelter as a starting clinic till the new one was all built. Ronald Vaecesa was the name of that nurse. And one time I went over there to visit, and I stopped at the little island where the little hospital was and met the doctor there, and he was an English doctor. And he said to me, "Ronald Vaecesa is the most capable man I have ever met in all the world." I said, "That's a huge big thing to say about a nurse." He said, "Oh, he's not just a nurse." He said, "That man is a superman. I have never met a man," I've worked in many parts of the world, "I have never met a man ever anywhere who has all the capabilities of your nurse, Ronald Vaecesa. He is a super person." I said, "Well, tell me, what makes you say that?" He said, Well, when we were choosing the place to put the permanent clinic, he said all the different people from around the local area, they wanted to struggle and fight over having it in their land so they could have control over it, or in this land so that they could have control over it. And I tried to talk through it all, and all they did was speak louder and louder and louder, and I couldn't get any sense and I didn't know what to do. Ronald Vaecesa came up and tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Doctor, you've done good. Would you like me to have a turn talking to them?" And so I said, "Yeah, okay, I don't know where to go now." And so Ronald sat them all down. And he sat in the middle and he said, "Now you from there, you tell me all the good about your land, why you think yours is good. And then there's other people. Now you tell me why you think your land is the best. And you other people, why you think your land is the best place." And then he said, "Now I want to share with you some principles of the kind of land. We need a property that has plenty of ventilation, plenty of air, so we can have the wind coming up. It needs to be central to all of these." And he began to outline all the qualities. And all of a sudden they all realised that there was one section of land that was probably the one that fulfilled all of those. And the owner of that land stepped forward and he says, "That's my land, you can have it." Ronald, of course, he had already seen that land and he already knew which was the best section of land. And the doctor said to me, "Ronald was a statesman. He just had them all tied around his little finger, but he wasn't using them. He listened to them all, and they all trusted him. And he had a capacity to talk to them all in such a gentle, caring, interested way that they all just listened to him and they were able to go along with whatever he thought was the very best." He said, "But then we started digging the foundations for the clinic. And a tractor was sent over there. Ronald ran the tractor. He operated the digger for digging all of those trenches, and he had it all set up so that when the team came in to do all the foundations, he had it all done, all set up, all measured out right. When the tractor didn't work real good, Ronald fiddled with the tractor. He pulled this off and cleaned up this, and then he put it all back together." He said, "Ronald is a good mechanic. He's an operator of machinery." And then he said, "His nursing is just the best. He is the best nurse I have ever seen in all the world." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I had a lady who came over to my hospital. She wasn't belonging to any church. She wasn't a Christian. And she was very, very sick. And I could feel that this lady may not be able to survive. But I still gave her medicines and I had her in the hospital for about 3 weeks. And then I thought after that time, what about Ronald? Because every person Ronald had sent to my hospital, and he had suggested what he thought was wrong with the person, he was right every time. Whatever he said, I knew it to be correct. And every time I tested everything that he had said, I found he was right. He just knew. He had a real capacity to diagnose troubles. After about 3 weeks, this lady was not getting any better. She was in fact getting very bad, and I could see that in a few weeks she would die. So eventually I sat down with the lady and her family and said, the medicine is not helping you. You probably need to go home knowing that this is the end and make ready your life for death. He said, but there is another person you could go to. You could go to Ronald Vaecesa. There might be something that he can do that'll help. But that's a mission clinic, isn't it? Yes, that is the mission clinic. Yeah, but we're nothing to do with the mission. We don't want to go there. I said, well, that might be the difference between life and death if you go there. And that was the doctor telling me the story. Anyway, the lady thought, well, I don't want to die. And so she ended up at Ronald Vaecesa's clinic. Ronald did his diagnosis, his examination and all the rest, and then decided that he had some tablets which were exactly the same as what the doctor had given the lady. But when he went in to talk to the lady after examining her and then bringing out the tablets, he said, you know, these medicines are only as good as what God makes them. I'm here as a representative of heaven. I represent God here. He made you. He knows what the trouble is inside, and he can make this medicine do what it's meant to do for your body. Are you willing to trust God to do that? She said, oh, well, if you say so, I'm happy to do it. I don't want to die, so I trust God. And so he had this little prayer for God to be there to look after this lady, that the medicines that he would give, God would make them work for her. 3 days later, that lady left the clinic perfectly well. Her disease had gone completely, and Ronald was so thrilled. And that lady started from that point on a journey of talking to God each day, morning and night. She started on a pathway of getting to know God because God had intervened for her. You know, boys and girls, God does know us. He does understand what's going on inside us, and he loves us very, very much. And he wants your life to be fulfilling. He wants it to be happy. He wants you to have peace. And as you put your trust in God, if you were to talk to him each morning, each night through the day, I know that God will give you a sense of peace and joy, also like that lady had. And the doctor, who was not a Christian, was willing to also openly talk about, because he saw God at work. God bless you, boys and girls.
You've been listening to Mission Stories for Kids with Uncle Gordon, a production of 3ABN Australia Radio.